Good morning, internets. All right, let's see. So this morning in Las Vegas, it is 55 degrees out, and I am starting with a 37-mile range on the battery pack in the 2012 Chevy Volt Premium. So that's not too shabby. Come up one from, my usual average, with the temperatures coming up a little bit here and there. And our high for today, the 1st of February, is actually 74 degrees. 74 degrees. So, we had a couple of nice weeks of winter and it's over now. It's all over now. We have 2 seasons in Las Vegas. They are kind of cold and dry and really freaking hot and dry. So it looks like we're edging out of kind of cold and dry. Yeah, but this morning I want to talk to you guys about a thing that's kind of big in the news right now. So Toyota just announced a recall of about 645,000 different cars, and they are all Toyota Priuses, and a couple of different Lexus SUVs. And the reason for the recall is that in the event of a crash, the airbags in these models of cars may not deploy. And that's scary. Now, if you are a Prius driver and you're, one of the, and I know I have some viewers that drive Priuses, this is for cars produced from March of 2015 to May of 2016. So, just figure out your car's birthday and don't freak out if you have a recall. It doesn't mean that you have a bad car. Literally every car I've ever owned has had a recall issued for it. My very first car, Saturn Ion, they recalled the entire ignition and steering system, and I had to take it in to get it fixed. So if you've never experienced a recall before, don't freak out. Toyota is going to identify, which VINs are subject to the recall. They're going to send out letters sometime in late March, and the way they do this is that your VIN is registered with the DMV, and they alert your state, and they get your address, and they'll send you a letter saying, hey, your car is eligible for a recall repair, and here's what's wrong with it. Then you go to any certified Toyota dealer, and they are going to scan all the serial numbers of the sensors that are responsible for the failure. And if those serial numbers come back as, oh yeah, these are the faulty sensors, then they're going to replace them on the spot at no cost to you. It doesn't cost you any money, but if you are driving one of those cars, you do need to know that your safety is at risk. There's a potential for, in the event of a crash, your airbags are not going to deploy. Toyota is going to be issuing the recall notices at the end of March. I think that's a little late for something that's potentially fatal with a recall like that. With the Saturn Ion, the thing that was going wrong with it is that my particular recall that GM sent out is that the steering would actually lock. And I experienced this problem with the car myself, where when the key was in the ignition, the wheel would lock all the way to one way or the other, and then for a while the key wouldn't come out. The ignition was doing all kinds of weird stuff. We actually had to open a panel in the bottom of the steering column, and I had to, every time I wanted to turn the car off, I had to reach up into that panel and trigger release manually. And then we reinstalled that panel after I got the recall notice. I didn't know. See, this is what I'm worried about with VW. I know I'm a little scattered this morning, but stick with me. So with my personal recall, I had to deal with the effects of what was broken before I ever got the recall notice from GM about what was wrong with the Saturn. And I thought that it was just I had a bad ignition and that I needed to replace it or something. I didn't realize that it was something that could potentially be dealt with at a dealership. I thought it was just my ignition is bad, and it turned out it was a recallable thing. But I was reaching into that panel and manually manipulating the ignition and components of the steering column for probably 2 months before I ever received the recall notice. And what was happening is that some people's steering were locking one way or the other, or even in a straight line. It was locking and not working when people were at speed on the freeway, so they couldn't turn. So that's pretty scary, and people were just launching off into things, freeway support columns and stuff like that, and the people died. That's the really shaky thing about a recall. The way they determine whether or not they're going to do a recall is a certain number of instances have to have happened where they can absolutely determine 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is the part that failed, that it was not driver error, that it's mechanical failure in an unexpected way, and it's not due to improper maintenance. It's actually due to some sort of defect in manufacturing. So they determine that, and then they see how many of those instances happen, and then they determine, you know, the likely percentage of vehicles to experience this. One of the other things they also consider is it cheaper to issue a recall, or is it cheaper to settle all the lawsuits that we're going to have from all of the injuries, fatalities, and failures that this mechanical issue is likely to cause? Now, if they project that the lawsuits are cheaper than the cost of the recall is going to be, because it's going to cost Toyota a lot of money, they're going to let people come into service departments at dealerships. And if you ever had your car serviced or repaired at a dealership and paid for it, you know, not on warranty, sorry guys, time for tea, then you know it's one of the most expensive ways to have your car serviced, is to go to the actual dealer. And so any time that a car is in one of their service bays for a recall, they're not making money. They're spending money. You know, there's the cost of whatever part they're replacing, and then there's the cost of labor of the techs, and where those technicians are not working on something that generates billable hours. It costs a lot of money. So if they determine that it's cheaper to pay out, you know, whatever lawsuits they are pretty sure they're going to get than it is to issue a recall, they don't issue one. It's really just a game of numbers, and that's the thing that I think is important to know, like for people to know as drivers in general, because it's not just about your car, it's also about all the other cars on the road, and the way that vehicle manufacturers handle these things is kind of affects us all. So it matters to know these things, and it is a little freaky. I mean, they basically have this issue that you know, airbags are not deploying when people are crashing. Now that's just, it's unacceptable. And the reason that I want to talk about it today is because I have experience dealing with recalls. I also had a recall that needed to be serviced in the Volkswagen, and that was, you know, it was another not terrible. It wasn't a terrible experience at all. I called the department. I gave them my VIN when I got the letter in the mail, and I made an appointment, and I went down there, and they fixed it on the spot. Now, while I was there, Volkswagen also quoted me a whole bunch of other garbage. I had a couple of warning lights in my system that you can't turn off with a regular code reader, like your regular OBD2 you couldn't turn off, which was irritating because I have one of those. And they were like, yeah, we can get those turned off for you, taken care of. It's just going to cost $300. I was like, it's going to cost $300 for you to plug in your fancy German machine rather than a regular machine? And what's that $300 for exactly? Well, you know, to diagnose it. I know how a code reader works. You plug it in to the OBD2 somewhere under the dash, and you turn the car on, and then you wait for the computer to tell you what's wrong, and then a little light comes on and says, clear code or not. That's the freaking end. Like, that's what it takes to clear a light. And it just so happens that in, let's see, Mercedes, Volkswagen, and Audis a lot of the times, and Lamborghini, oddly enough, because Volkswagen, you can't use a regular code reader for a lot of the codes. Now, a regular OBD2 code reader is like your standard code reader. It can read all of the codes, but the Volkswagens and the Germans won't let you clear it without like a special German code reader. So Rob got wise and got another code reader that was German specific, and that ended up doing the trick. It ended up just being a false warning. You know, we cleared it and put another 100 miles on the car to see if the lights would come back, because we couldn't track down where it was coming from, and everything was fine. And Volkswagen wanted to charge me $300 for that. So that was nonsense. So when you do go to the dealer, don't let them freak you out about other stuff about your car. You know, if listen to the technicians, but also, you know, deploy some critical thinking skills. If they come at you hard wanting like a lot of money for something that seems basic or seems unnecessary, go with your gut on that, and get a second opinion from a mechanic you actually know and trust. I don't have any way to confirm this, but my sense was that technician had been instructed to do that, had been instructed to look for extra things. Now, I did have lights on, and it's his job as a technician to tell me that, but he was pretty aggressive about it and leaned on me pretty hard, like, we're the only ones that can clear that, and you have to come to an authorized Volkswagen dealer, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, this is some German car manufacturer tomfoolery, and I'm going to go ahead and get a second opinion, and with a little bit of research, we were able to solve the problem for far less money than $300. And I'm like, dude, I'm a teacher. I cannot with you right now. With this $300 for a light. Are you kidding me? You plug in a computer and you press a button. I'm not an idiot. And that's one of the other things that I hate dealing with mechanics by myself a lot of the time, because when I go into a dealership, I deal with a tech, I deal with a mechanic or something, they want to sell me parts for my car that I don't need, or they want to try to reassure me unnecessarily about what's going on with my car and not explain things to me. They're like, oh, well, it's just a general electronics issue and you wouldn't understand it. I actually had one mechanic tell me, like, just come back with your husband and we'll go ahead and get it all sorted out. Just come back with your husband? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Ugh, I wanted to kung fu fight his face. But, so, like, if you're a chick, watch out for that. I'm sure you've already dealt with it. There's predatory dudes out there that think that girls can't know things about cars, which is rude and is based on nothing. That's not fair or nice. Like, how hard can it be? Dumbass, you learned it. So, stuff like that kind of ticks you off, and you got to deal with that with the recall. But when it comes down to the recall, if you're driving one of these Priuses, I don't know if you have to wait until you get your letter. That's the other thing. I don't know if you have to wait till you get your letter from the DMV, but don't freak out. Just get your letter in the mail sometime in late March. Follow the instructions. Just Google local Volkswagen dealers in your area, and make an appointment with, certified Volkswagen tech, and go in there and get it fixed. And then when they try to charge you another $300 for unnecessary crap, laugh at them and say neener neener and run away, and just go on with your life. But do be aware, like, check your mail. I've got the recall notice, and I've almost thrown one away before because it kind of looked like junk mail. Just open all your mail for the next 2 months, Prius and Lexus drivers. So those are the main things I wanted to talk about, regarding that today. Just chill out, but be aware. Safety recalls do happen, and it's important to take care of them. I don't have a recall on the 2012 Chevy Volt yet, knock on wood, but I do suspect one's going to come out. Now, the reason for that is that if you guys go back in the videos and you watch the Reno saga, you know that we got stranded up there, and I drove the car up to Reno, wasn't able to drive it back home, and it was this whole big deal, because I had a sensor. It turned out to be nothing was mechanically wrong with the Volt. There was a bad sensor, the coolant level sensor, attached to the coolant pump, and all of this stuff went bad. And when it finally made its way to a GM tech, he looked at it, he heard the story, and before he even got under the hood of the vehicle, he goes, I know what's wrong with it. And he said it was the coolant level sensor. And the problem is that if the Volt can't sense its coolant level, if it can't be sure of it, the computer will not allow the vehicle to charge. And that's a Porsche Panamera Turbo. I can kind of understand what Rob likes those. All right. I know I've talked mad trash on it before, but that looks pretty good. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Squirrel. What was I saying? Crap. Oh, coolant level sensor. So if the coolant level sensor is not working, the Volt won't allow itself to charge because it thinks it can't keep the battery pack cool. So to protect itself, it won't take a charge. And we didn't know really what that meant, and I was afraid to drive it with it not being right. But the dude fixed it, and not only did he fix it, but he fixed it right away because he's done so many of them before. He goes, yeah, between 2011 and 2013, all the coolant level sensors go bad on those in a couple of years. It's not that big a deal. And I was like, if it's that many of them, sooner or later there's going to be a recall. Now, the problem with this is that is fairly unlikely to generate enough lawsuits to motivate GM to issue the recall. So we'll see what happens. It could be a few years. Hello, Highway Patrol, sitting on the side of the road, none too sneakily. Gotta have the Highway Patrol out. God, all day, every day. Do not speed in Vegas. So we'll see about that. But just so you guys know, if you drive a Volt from between 2011 and 2013, I heard it from a GM tech that all day long, every time one of these things pulls into his service bay, chances are he's changing a coolant level sensor on it. And So just be aware of that. If your thing won't charge because you got a coolant problem or whatever, tell the technicians to go look for that first rather than billing you for a whole bunch of other diagnostics, because chances are that's what it is. And I have that on authority, from GM Techs. The guys that actually do the wrenching, that gets their hands dirty, that work on stuff. Like, that's the guy I want to talk to. Not the service writer. Not the service writer. Service writers make me cranky. But the tech, talk to the tech. Demand to talk to somebody who has dirty fingernails and 5 o'clock shadow and a kind of sour disposition because he's been dealing with dumb service techs all day, or service writers all day. Talk to that guy. Like, talk to him. Go past the guy with the really, really clean haircut and the clean shirt who's never worked a day in his life, who writes things on a clipboard and makes the lives of the guy in the bay hard. Like, don't deal with that guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He only knows how to get your money. Try to talk to the mechanic. And if they won't let you talk to the mechanic, personally, then go somewhere else. There's more than one dealership. There's more than one mechanic shop. Like, as a general rule, and if you're a service writer and you're watching this and you're a decent human being, I would love to hear defense of that claim. I really would, because I've never dealt with one that treated me with enough respect, honestly. They never give the owner of the vehicle enough credit, and I know that they've got management breathing down their necks to try to get them to make as much money as possible. I know everybody's got their quotas to hit and this and that, but like, treat people right, man. Like, we all need our cars, and there's no reason to milk it for more than it's worth, because if you treat somebody right, like, they're gonna come back. I'm gonna have more repeat business. Cars get wear and tear. I'm gonna need more repair in the future, and I'm more likely to come back to somebody who's honest with me, where the whole staff is honest, like, not just the service writer, but that guy's boss and the guy, on the other side of the glass who is actually doing the wrenching. Like, when all of those people work together in the right way and treat the customer right, it makes a really big difference. But unfortunately, it's kind of rare. So that's my ramble for this morning about the recall. So if you have a 2015 to 2016 Prius or Lexus, also a whole bunch of other Toyota models in that same manufacturing window, but they are models of cars mostly that don't get sold here in America. They're not models that I recognize, apart from a few of the Corollas. But it is 645,000 cars that they've estimated need to be serviced. So just be aware and look into it, guys. And another highway patrol up on my right. That didn't take long. So that's about all I had to say this morning, guys. I hope everybody's having a really good Thursday. We're almost there, guys. We're almost to the weekend. It's going to be another good weekend. I'm going to be at the car show on Eastern on Saturday morning. I really hope to see y'all out there. And I think that's about it. So if you've enjoyed watching, I really appreciate you being here this morning. So please consider subscribing right over here. And be sure to hit that notification bell. Here's some other videos we think you'll enjoy right down here. My name is Catherine with EVs of Nada. I hope everybody's having a really great day. Please remember to like, subscribe, and smile.